The first time she said it, the airport loudspeaker was calling for boarding, rain was slamming against the glass walls, and her hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped her ticket. She looked at me like someone standing on the edge of a cliff, daring the wind to push her. Her voice was steady, but her eyes weren't. She asked if I even liked women with baggage. And I remember feeling, in that exact second, that the question wasn't about suitcases. It was about scars. It was about mistakes. It was about the parts of her life that didn't fit neatly into a carry-on. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in loving people for who they truly are, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel, The Kindness Chronicles. Stories like this deserve to be felt together. I met her on a Tuesday that didn't feel important at the time. It was one of those gray afternoons when the sky hangs low and heavy, when the world feels paused between breaths. I was sitting in a small cafe near the train station, the kind with chipped wooden tables and the smell of burnt espresso in the air. She walked in dragging 2 large suitcases behind her, both scratched and worn like they had seen more miles than most people. Her hair was tied back in a loose knot, and there were faint shadows under her eyes that told a story of sleepless nights. She didn't notice me at first. She was focused on balancing everything, her bags, her phone pressed between her ear and shoulder, her pride. But when one suitcase tipped over and spilled its contents across the cafe floor, the entire room went silent. Clothes, papers, a framed photograph, and a small stuffed rabbit slid across the tiles. For a moment, she just stood there, frozen, as if this wasn't the first time her life had fallen apart in public that I got up without thinking. I knelt down and started picking up her things. I handed her the photograph first. It was a picture of her and a little boy, maybe 5 years old, both covered in what looked like cake frosting, laughing so hard their eyes were closed. She grabbed it quickly, pressing it against her chest before whispering a thank you that barely made it past her lips. That was the first time I saw the crack in her armor. We started talking in fragments at first. Polite questions. Half answers. She told me she was moving. She didn't say from where or to where. Just moving. Like movement itself was the only constant in her life. I offered to help her carry her bags to the taxi stand outside, and she hesitated for a long moment before nodding. Trust didn't come easy to her. You could see it in the way she watched people, like she was always measuring the distance to the nearest exit. Over the next few weeks, I kept running into her. At the grocery store. At the park near the river. At the same cafe. It turned out she had rented a small apartment 2 blocks from mine. She worked late shifts at the hospital downtown, and sometimes I would see her walking home in the early hours of the morning, shoulders slumped, eyes distant. There was always that same quiet exhaustion clinging to her. One evening, I saw her sitting alone on a park bench while her son, the little boy from the photo, chased pigeons across the grass. The sun was setting, painting everything in gold, but she didn't look at the sky. She looked at her phone, scrolling with a tension that felt almost painful to witness. When she looked up and saw me, she forced a smile. It was the kind of smile that said she was trying. That we began to talk more after that. About small things at first. Favorite childhood cartoons. The worst coffee in town. The way the river smelled after rain. But slowly, the real pieces started to surface. She had been married once. Young and hopeful and convinced that love alone could fix everything. It didn't. The marriage. Particularly brutal phone call, she broke down in my arms. Not gracefully. Not quietly. It was the kind of cry that comes from deep in the chest, raw and shaking. She kept apologizing for being too much. For having too many complications. For not being easy to love. That was when she asked it. Do you even like women with baggage? The room felt still. I could hear the ticking of the clock, the hum of the refrigerator, the soft breathing of her son asleep in the next room. I thought about everything she had survived. Every bruise on her spirit that she had hidden behind polite smiles. And I realized that what she called baggage was simply proof that she had lived, fought, endured. I told her I was only here for hers. Not because I wanted drama. Not because I thought I could fix her. But because her story mattered. Because loving someone means loving the chapters that shaped them, not just the polished pages they show the world. From that moment, something shifted. She didn't transform overnight. There were still hard days. Court hearings. Financial struggles. Moments of doubt. But she began to let me in without bracing for impact. She started leaving her phone face up instead of hiding it. She started asking for help instead of carrying everything alone. Noah began calling me when he scored a goal at soccer practice. He saved me a seat at school plays. He slipped his small hand into mine without hesitation. And each time, I felt the weight of responsibility settle gently on my shoulders, not as a burden, but as a gift. One winter evening, the power went out in her apartment during a storm. Snow piled up outside, and the wind howled like it was trying to tear the building apart. We lit candles and sat on the floor wrapped in blankets. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and for once, she didn't seem ready to run. She seemed present. She told me she had spent years believing she was damaged goods. That every failed relationship confirmed the story she told herself, that she was hard to love. I told her that love isn't about finding someone with no scars. It's about finding someone whose scars you're willing to hold. Spring came slowly that year. The custody battle settled into something manageable. The debts began to shrink. The apartment walls filled with framed photos, new memories layered gently over old ones. The suitcases that once stayed half-packed in her closet were finally pushed to the back, untouched for months. The airport scene came later. Her job offered her a promotion in another city. Better pay. Better hours. A fresh start. But it meant leaving everything behind again. She was terrified of uprooting Noah. Terrified of starting from scratch. Terrified of losing what we had built. At the gate, with the storm raging outside, she looked at me and asked that question one more time. Not because she doubted my feelings. But because she doubted her worth. I took her hands and reminded her of every small victory she had fought for. Every late night. Every brave decision. I told her that baggage isn't something you discard to make someone comfortable. It's something you carry with pride, because it proves you survived. She didn't board that plane. Not because she chose me over her career. But because she realized she didn't have to run anymore. The promotion could wait. Her peace couldn't. A year later, we stood in that same park where I first saw her watching Noah chase pigeons. Only this time, she was laughing freely, head thrown back, sunlight catching in her hair. Noah was older, taller, braver. And she was lighter. Love didn't erase her past. It didn't magically fix everything. But it gave her the courage to stop apologizing for it. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that everyone carries something heavy and that love is about choosing to stay anyway, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this video. Subscribe to The Kindness Chronicles so we can continue telling stories that matter. And before this video ends, I have one special request. Comment one word that represents what you believe real love means. Let's fill the comments section with hope. Because somewhere out there is someone asking if they are too much, too broken, too complicated. And maybe they just need to hear that someone is only there for theirs.